Welcome back, everyone, to the Fame Factor by Skoob, and I am you host Sonia Lambert. Today, we're diving into a story that has all the elements of a Hollywood drama, except this one is real. We're talking about James Franco, Oscar-nominated actor, Golden Globe winner, academic overachiever, and someone whose career went from the heights of critical acclaim to the depths of scandal and controversy. This is a story about talent, ambition, and the dark side of power. It's about how social media changed the game for celebrities, how the subtle Me Too movement forced a reckoning in Hollywood, and how one man's choices caught up with him in ways he probably never imagined. So buckle up, because we're about to explore the complex, controversial, and deeply troubling chapters of James Franco's life and career. Let's start at the beginning. Who is James Franco? Born on April 19, 1978 in Palo Alto, California, Franco grew up in a family that valued creativity and academics. From early on, he showed a strong interest in the arts and storytelling, interests that would define his entire life. In the late 1990s, Franco moved to Los Angeles with dreams of making it in Hollywood. Like so many aspiring actors, he started small, landing minor roles on television. But one of those roles turned out to be anything but minor. Franco appeared on Freaks and Geeks, a cult favorite that showcased his ability to portray relatable, nuanced characters. The show didn't last long, but it gave Franco something invaluable: visibility and credibility. His big break came in 2001 with the HBO biopic James Dean, where Franco portrayed the iconic actor. This wasn't just another TV movie role. Franco completely transformed himself, capturing Dean's charisma, vulnerability, and intensity. The performance earned him a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a miniseries or television film. At just 23 years old, Franco had proven he was a serious actor capable of tackling complex roles. Then came the role that would make him a household name: Harry Osborn in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. Playing Peter Parker's conflicted best friend, Franco brought emotional depth to a character torn between loyalty and darkness. These blockbuster films catapulted him to international fame and introduced him to audiences worldwide. But Franco wasn't content to be just another action movie star. He deliberately sought out diverse roles across different genres. There was Pineapple Express, the stoner comedy that became a cult hit and showcased his comedic timing. And then there was 127 Hours, directed by Danny Boyle, where Franco portrayed real-life mountain climber Aaron Ralston, who was trapped by a boulder and forced to amputate his own arm to survive. The performance in 127 Hours was nothing short of extraordinary. Franco carried the entire film, spending most of it alone on screen, conveying terror, hope, desperation, and determination. The role earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, a testament to his range and talent. But here's where Franco's story gets really interesting. He wasn't just an actor. Franco became known for his insatiable appetite for learning and creative expression. He pursued higher education with an enthusiasm that bewildered many in Hollywood. We're talking multiple degrees from UCLA, Columbia University, New York University, and Yale University. He published poetry, fiction, and essays. He taught film and writing courses. He directed films and exhibited visual art in galleries. Franco seemed to be everywhere, doing everything. He was the Renaissance man of Hollywood, an artist who refused to be confined to a single medium or discipline. This multidisciplinary approach made him fascinating to watch, even if some critics questioned whether he was spreading himself too thin. Throughout his career, Franco cultivated a reputation for taking risks. He gravitated toward characters that challenged conventional storytelling. Whether in mainstream Hollywood productions or experimental indie films, his choices reflected a dedication to artistic growth and a desire to explore the human experience in all its complexity. By all appearances, James Franco had it all: talent, success, critical acclaim, and intellectual credibility. He was living the dream. But as we all know, dreams can turn into nightmares. And for James Franco, the nightmare was just beginning. It was 2014, and social media was becoming an increasingly powerful force in celebrity culture. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. These platforms gave fans unprecedented access to their favorite stars. But they also created new dangers, new ways for things to go terribly wrong. And for James Franco, they did. Reports emerged that Franco had exchanged texts and attempted to arrange a meeting with a 17-year-old girl via social media. Let that sink in for a moment. Here was a successful, famous actor in his mid-30s trying to meet up with a teenager. The incident quickly became a subject of intense public concern and scrutiny. This wasn't just gossip. This was a potential legal and ethical disaster. The case sparked widespread discussion about the responsibilities of public figures and the potential dangers of social media, especially when it came to interactions with minors. So, how did Franco respond? He tried to explain his actions by emphasizing what he called the trickiness of social media. In an interview, he admitted, "I've definitely shown bad judgment. It's a complicated thing, social media. It's hard to read and easy to misread. I didn't intend harm, but I understand how it looks." It was an interesting response, acknowledging the mistake while trying to frame it as a misunderstanding amplified by the digital environment. He was essentially saying that context and intent can be lost in online communications, which is true, but it didn't really address the core issue. Why was he communicating with a 17-year-old in the first place? Shortly after the story gained traction, Franco appeared on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert to publicly address the allegations. Colbert pressed him about his behavior, and Franco tried to downplay the severity. "I don't want to make excuses," he said, "but sometimes these things get blown out of proportion. I never knowingly did anything to hurt anyone." That phrase, "never knowingly," is doing a lot of work there. It's the kind of carefully worded statement that acknowledges something happened while maintaining plausible deniability about intent. During that same period, actress Ali Sheedy posted some cryptic tweets that seemed to allude to negative experiences with Franco. When asked about it, Franco categorically denied any wrongdoing. "I don't know what she's talking about, and I never had any inappropriate relationship with her." Franco also used the opportunity to refute other accusations circulating online. "Some things that people have said just aren't true," he told Colbert, "and it's frustrating to have your character questioned on misinformation." Despite these denials, many critics remained skeptical. The question on everyone's mind was, were his explanations sufficient? Did he take enough responsibility? The episode exposed the challenges public figures face when managing their public image amid conflicting claims on social media. Looking back, Franco himself seemed to recognize the gravity of the situation. "It's a lesson in being careful with how you communicate and the impact those communications can have," he remarked. But here's the thing. For many people, this wasn't just about being careful on social media. It was about a pattern of behavior, a willingness to cross boundaries that should have been obvious. And as we'll see, this 2014 incident was just the tip of the iceberg. Fast forward to January 2018. James Franco had just won a Golden Globe for his performance in The Disaster Artist, his passion project about the making of The Room, widely considered one of the worst movies ever made. Franco directed, produced, and starred in the film, and critics loved it. He was on top of the world again. But within days, that world came crashing down. Multiple women came forward with allegations of sexual misconduct against Franco. These weren't random accusations from strangers. These were former students from his acting school, Studio 4. 5 women in total made claims that Franco had exploited his position as an educator to pressure students into sexual situations under the guise of advancing their acting careers. The allegations were first reported by the Los Angeles Times and included detailed accounts from actresses Sarah Tither Kaplan and Tony Gall. Their stories were disturbing and specific. Tither Kaplan alleged that during the filming of an orgy scene, Franco removed protective plastic guards covering the genitalia of female actors while simulating oral sex with them. Think about that for a moment. Removing safety equipment during an intimate scene without consent. That's not artistic direction. That's exploitation. She also claimed that she was encouraged to participate in a sex scenes masterclass, which required students to audition nude or partially nude. After participating, she was cast in a role that involved explicit content, leading her to believe that performing in such scenes was a prerequisite for career advancement. In other words, the message was clear. If you want to work, you have to be willing to do this. Tony Gall's lawsuit painted an even darker picture. She alleged that Franco and his collaborators used their positions to create what she called a pipeline of young women who were subjected to sexual exploitation under the pretense of education. Students were encouraged to pay $750 for the master class and were led to believe that performing explicit scenes would lead to roles in Franco's films. This is where the abuse of power becomes crystal clear. These were aspiring actresses who looked up to Franco, who trusted him as a teacher and mentor. He wasn't just some guy hitting on women at a bar. He was in a position of authority over students who were paying him for education and opportunity. Franco's response? He denied the claims, describing them as not accurate. His lawyer, Michael Plonskier, went even further, stating that the accusations had been debunked and that Franco would seek damages from the plaintiffs for filing a scurrilous publicity-seeking lawsuit. That's a strong stance, not just denying the allegations, but threatening to sue the accusers. It's a tactic we've seen before from powerful men facing allegations. Attack the credibility of the women coming forward. But the timing made everything worse. Franco had worn a Time's Up pin at the 2018 Golden Globe Awards, showing solidarity with the Me Too movement. When the allegations surfaced days later, many saw this as deeply hypocritical. Here was a man publicly supporting a movement against sexual harassment, while privately being accused of the very behavior that movement was fighting against. Ally Sheedy, who had worked with Franco in the past, tweeted cryptic messages expressing her disapproval. Remember, she had hinted at issues with Franco back in 2014, but now, in the context of Me Too, her words carried more weight and led to further media attention. The scandal highlighted a broader issue in Hollywood: the abuse of power in teacher-student relationships, the exploitation of aspiring artists, and the way some men in positions of authority used opportunity as currency for sexual access. For 3 years, the legal battle dragged on. Franco maintained his innocence, his lawyers fought back, and the women who came forward endured public scrutiny and personal attacks. It was ugly, painful, and exhausting for everyone involved. Then, in 2021, something significant happened. James Franco agreed to a $2.2 million settlement. Now, let's be clear about what a settlement means. Franco did not admit to any wrongdoing as part of the agreement, but he also didn't go to trial to fight the allegations and prove his innocence. Instead, he chose to pay millions of dollars to make the case go away. The settlement was structured to compensate the women who came forward with allegations against Franco, acknowledging the harm they alleged to have suffered. While specific details remained confidential, the agreement effectively closed the ongoing litigation while providing some measure of redress for the plaintiffs. By choosing to settle, Franco avoided a protracted court battle that would have further publicized the accusations and subjected everyone involved to extended legal scrutiny. Court cases like this can drag on for years, with depositions, discovery, testimony, and media coverage at every turn. A settlement, while expensive, offers closure. But here's the question that settlement raises. If Franco was truly innocent, why pay $2.2 million? Some argue that settlements can allow accused individuals to avoid public accountability. Others see them as pragmatic tools for providing timely resolutions and support for survivors. The settlement came during a period of significant cultural shift. The Me Too movement had transformed how society viewed allegations of sexual misconduct. No longer were accusers automatically dismissed or discredited. There was growing recognition of the power imbalances that made it difficult for victims to speak out and the institutional forces that protected abusers. Franco's legal team's public statements included recognition of the broader issues surrounding the treatment of women in the entertainment industry. This acknowledgement contributed to ongoing discourse about the necessity of creating safer and more equitable environments in Hollywood. Industry observers and advocates for victims' rights pointed to the importance of systemic change. They emphasized the need for stronger safeguards, clearer reporting mechanisms, and cultural shifts that empower women and marginalized groups. Franco's case became part of a broader push to challenge long-standing norms that enabled misconduct. The $2.2 million settlement became a high-profile example of how allegations of abuse and exploitation translated into legal and financial consequences, even in the absence of formal admissions of guilt. It sent a message. There are costs to this behavior, even if you never see the inside of a courtroom. Also, in 2021, something remarkable happened. James Franco finally spoke openly about the allegations in a candid interview. For years, he had largely stayed silent, letting his lawyers do the talking. But now, he was ready to address the situation directly. And what he said was surprising. Franco acknowledged that he had engaged in consensual sexual relationships with some students from his acting school. He didn't hide behind legalese or vague denials. He admitted it happened, but he also expressed sincere regret, recognizing that those relationships were inappropriate due to the inherent power dynamics and professional boundaries they violated. This was significant because it was one of the few moments when Franco directly spoke to the nature of the allegations. "I slept with students," he said, "and that was wrong." Franco emphasized that the relationships were consensual, but he underscored that this fact did not negate the inappropriateness of his actions. He articulated an awareness that engaging in sexual relationships with students, especially when he held a position of authority and influence, was a violation of trust and professional ethics. This is an important distinction. Consensual doesn't always mean appropriate or ethical. When there's a power imbalance, when one person can potentially advance or hinder the other's career, true consent becomes complicated. Can a student really freely consent when their teacher controls opportunities they desperately want? Franco spoke about the importance of accountability and reflected on how his actions might have contributed to an uncomfortable or unsafe environment. He attributed his behavior to what he called a sex addiction, and stated that he had been working to improve his understanding of power dynamics in relationships. His comments suggested a desire to learn from the experience and an understanding of the responsibility that comes with holding a position of power in the entertainment industry. Whether you believe his sincerity is another question, but at least publicly, he was acknowledging harm. Despite his admissions and expressions of remorse, Franco maintained that he had not committed any illegal or non-consensual acts. This distinction was crucial in framing his public response. He was acknowledging ethical missteps while denying coercion or exploitation. The response sparked mixed reactions. Some appreciated his willingness to admit fault and take responsibility. Others criticized him for not going far enough, for framing it as an addiction rather than a deliberate abuse of power, or for minimizing the impact of his actions. This mixed reception illustrated the challenges faced by those accused in the court of public opinion, especially when allegations involve complex issues of consent and power imbalance. There's no playbook for how to respond to these situations in a way that satisfies everyone. Franco's public acknowledgement highlighted how even consensual relationships can be problematic when they involve unequal power dynamics, and how important it is for figures in authority to uphold strict ethical standards. The fallout from the allegations and settlement didn't just affect Franco's reputation. It devastated his career. Projects stalled or were met with increased skepticism. The actor who once commanded leading roles in major films found himself facing a very different Hollywood. Perhaps the most painful consequence was personal. Franco's longtime collaborator and friend, Seth Rogen, publicly distanced himself. Rogen and Franco had worked together on multiple projects. Freaks and Geeks, Pineapple Express, This Is the End, The Interview, and The Disaster Artist. They had a genuine friendship that spanned decades, but Rogen made it clear he would no longer work with Franco. In interviews, Rogen explained that despite their previous close friendship, he could not continue to associate professionally with someone accused of such serious misconduct. It was a difficult decision, but one Rogen felt he had to make. Franco himself acknowledged the rift, stating that their friendship was over. He expressed understanding that Rogen had to speak out during the period of silence following the allegations. That tells you something about how serious this became, when even your closest friends and collaborators can't stand by you. The entertainment industry's response was mixed. Some in Hollywood quietly continued to work with Franco, while others kept their distance. The situation highlighted the complicated balance between public opinion, redemption, and career rehabilitation. And here's where it gets controversial. Despite everything, Franco hasn't completely disappeared. He continues to work on select projects, including an upcoming film where he's set to portray Fidel Castro. That casting decision reignited discussions about whether and how an artist's personal misconduct should affect their professional opportunities. Should Franco be allowed to continue his career? Can we separate the art from the artist? Or do some actions disqualify you from certain opportunities? These are questions without easy answers. Some people believe in second chances and rehabilitation. Others argue that there have to be consequences for abusing power, and that giving Franco high-profile roles sends the wrong message to survivors and other potential abusers. The debate continues, but one thing is clear: Franco's career will never be what it once was. The trajectory from Oscar nominee to scandal-plagued figure is complete. Whether he can successfully rebuild remains uncertain, as evolving standards around misconduct and the Me Too movement continue to shape the industry's tolerance for such controversies. So, what do we make of the James Franco story? On one side, there's undeniable talent, an actor once seen as one of the most gifted of his generation, with ambition, intellect, and creative range few could match. On the other, there's a troubling pattern of allegations, admissions of inappropriate relationships with students, and a $2.2 million settlement that reshaped his public image forever. Franco's story isn't just about one man's rise and fall. It's about power, blurred boundaries, and how long the entertainment industry allowed misconduct to hide behind fame. The warnings were there years earlier, but real consequences only arrived when the Me Too movement gave survivors the courage and the space to be heard. Even now, the questions remain uncomfortable. Can accountability coexist with redemption? Does talent deserve a second chance after harm has been done? And who truly pays the price when justice comes late? The answers aren't simple, and some details of this story rarely get discussed. To explore the full timeline, the unanswered questions, and what happened behind closed doors, download the Skoob app now and listen to the complete story.